You know, most people think their economy is determined by the numbers in their bank account, the size of their paycheck, or the opportunities available to them. But what if the true economy isn't financial at all? What if your economy is energetic? Every day you're making deposits and withdrawals from an invisible account called your energy. Your thoughts, your habits, your relationships, your environment, and your beliefs either increase your reserves or drain them. The quality of your energy determines the quality of your decisions. The quality of your decisions determine the quality of your results. Your energy influences how you show up in business, how you connect in relationships, and how you pursue purpose, and ultimately how much abundance you're able to create and receive. Your energy is your economy. Let's dive in. That's Vipin. I'm Bob. This is Manifest 360.
Love it. Love it. Great. I think you summed it all up. Your energy is your economy, and it's the positive stuff that we put into it, the positive outcomes that we get. And so you are energetic. Everything about you is energy. And, we can talk about the physical energy. We can talk about emotional energy. We can talk about spiritual energy. And I think those are the three main ones that permeate us throughout our life and determine kind of the quality of our life. And based on the quality of our life, the quality of our decisions, the quality, like you said, of our thoughts, determine kind of what we experience in life.
Mm-hmm. The goal isn't simply to make more money. The goal is to become a better person. At least that's what I think.
Yeah.
Because if you're a good person, you do the right thing, stuff will happen. Things will happen for you.
Yeah. And I think the goal is to be a good person. And I think it's important to become the person that you want to be. And I don't know if you can be a good person and still not achieve your goals or live a life of your, fulfillment. And that's a great question. So I think one of the goals is definitely to be a good person. And I think the other goal that we like to uncover is your true essence, be your true self.
Mm-hmm.
We've talked about this for the last 2 years. 2 years and a couple of months, in essence of who you are, what your desires are, what your passions are, what your purpose is, what you value. That, I think, is the complete you. And I think being a good person allows us to maybe become who we are. Whereas if you are not a good person, let's say you're a jerk or you're a negative person, and you're going to close off to the things that can help you flower. If you're a negative person, people aren't going to want to hear from you about your values and your passion. It's going to be very, very negative, and nobody wants negative energy. So being a good person definitely helps you get the life that you want, to be able to follow your passions and to be able to share your passions and make that your purpose.
Right. Absolutely. So why did you pick this as a topic this week?
So as you know, I'm writing this book called Money and Mantras. And the first chapter is all about the Great Divide, the paradox of the two words, money and mantras. They don't seem to go together. Mantras tend to be more spiritual. They tend to be a repetition of prayers, repetition of phrases that help us kind of get close to enlightenment, as the Buddhist monks, the Christian monks, and the Hindu monks or the gurus, they practice these repetition of words. Money is considered the root of all evil by some people. My son even mentioned that the other day, this week. And I was like, no, that's not true. And money is a great tool. And so as part of that book, the first chapter was a Great Divide. The second chapter is having a spiritual mindset and having a mindset that you can determine from a spiritual standpoint that allows you to become what you truly are, which is giving away your passion, and that is your purpose. To be able to do that, your energy is your spirituality, your emotional energy. And so energy is your economy. And so that is how I close that chapter with. And because of the value of the energy, and they say that if you match the energy of the thing that you want, then there is no question but for you to get it. That's an Einstein quote that I'm kind of just butchered. But so everything is energy, everything is matter. We are human beings living a life of energy because the foods that we eat determine the physical energy that we get out of our system, how our brain functions, how our body functions, and all of that stuff. Spiritual energy comes through our heart. As you know, an EKG, electromagnetic angiogram, is how you measure EKG, is how you measure your heart's energy. And that heart energy is really what pumps the blood, the nutrients throughout the body. And so heart is considered kind of the center of your spiritual being. And so for me, the energy that you have, the physical energy, we'll talk about that. We're talking about it right now. The emotional energy, which is all around things that we talked about, your internal self, and then your economy slash spiritual energy determines kind of at what level do you want to manifest? What level do you want to share your passions with people? And so the higher your energy level is, the more likely you're able to get what you want. Energy. Everybody gets that. Food is energy, calories burned, calories consumed, calories burned, physical energy we need. The biggest consumer of our energy in our body is our brain and our emotions. And so if you're emotionally charged, you are excited. It can be excited too much towards the anger level, or you can be excited in the enthusiasm and excitement of inspired level or motivated level. And then the second biggest consumer, I think, is digestion, actually using energy to be able to consume the energy that you have. So physical energy is really important. That's why they say diets and your food determine 80% of your health. And so what kind of foods that we put into ourselves? I'm not here to be a guru of nutrition. There's lots of books, lots of, our economy is focused on that a ton. There's tons of great resources for that. Go find that out. But it's really important to have plenty of energy throughout the day, physical energy. We talk a lot about emotional energy. And what determines our emotional energy is really based on our beliefs. Our beliefs are often subconscious. They've been embedded in us since childhood.
Mm-hmm.
There's some research that I think we've talked about that by the time you're 8, your subconscious is basically trained and set in that way. You can change it. There's multiple ways, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. And then from there, your subconscious beliefs turn into your real beliefs and things that you value. Things that you value may be innate to you. For people like me, security is a big one. Contradicts with my other value, which is freedom. But they're both there. I have to have freedom. To get freedom, I have to feel secure. And so those are the values. The connection is a big one for me. I get my energy through connection. I get my energy through talking to people. I'm an extrovert. You might be an extrovert as well, Bob. So that's where I think you might get your energy through those people as well. But sometimes I need rest. I need to be able to meditate. I need to be able to breathe. I need to be able to take time for myself to kind of recover my energy if I get too much energy out that way. So emotional energy is based on your subconscious beliefs, your thoughts, and your reactions to the experiences around you. Emotions is
Right.
how we manage our thoughts and how we manage our actual being. Emotional management is one of the most important. So emotional energy is where I have spent a lot of my time in the last 20 years, especially I would say in the last 3 years, focusing heavily on how do I manage my emotions. We've talked about it through mantras. I'm calm, centered, and loving, right? So it kind of goes into that whole thing. So third one is spiritual energy. There's a higher source in the world, and we've talked about God, talked about the universe. I believe that for most of us, that energy that permeates through the universe, this universal source, helps us get aligned and helps us get aligned through people. Usually energy flows through people. They say within 6 feet of a person is when you feel their energy. That's why hugs are really important. If it's a kind, loving person and you get a hug from them, you kind of really transmute energy. And so energy is really important to manage from an emotional standpoint, physical standpoint, and spiritual standpoint. That's why I think a lot of spiritual energy is really where we connect with a higher source. We get kind of inspiration. We get love. Some people say love is the ultimate energy that permeates the universe. I tend to agree. Being kind and loving to yourself and loving to other people, you really permeate through that energy. So those are the 3 main types of energies that I tend to focus on in my book. And then your economy. Your economy is often termed into your financial economy. That's how we tend to think of it. But if you think of your economy in 3 areas, your physical, which could be your financial, which could be emotional, which also it could be your financial based on your emotions and how you handle such situations. And spiritual, definitely that gets into the spiritual worlds of laws of attraction and manifestation and all of that. So I think to be able to get your economy to a level that you want, your abundance, your money, your financial wealth, you need to be able to get your physical wealth and your emotional wealth and to be able to connect that with the higher source. That's how you kind of develop your economy. Those are 3-legged stools that we talk a lot about in the book, and we also talk about it in our podcast.
One of the things, Vipin, that you have to worry about is drains on your energy. And I know we've talked about these energy sources and stuff, but we also have to think about and worry about some of the things that drain our energies, like bad thoughts, bad karma, there's a lot of things that drain ourselves, including negative self-talk, constantly worrying about stuff, unresolved resentment, bad relationships, when you try to compare what you've got with what other people have. And that's the one that I tend to have the most with, or the most issues with, is because, I'll look at other people and I'll be like, well, why do they have this or why do they have that? But then I think, comparing stuff isn't going to help me at all. It's just going to end up hurting me and taking away time, effort, and energy into something positive that I could be doing.
Yep, I totally agree. I think you hit a great point. So let's talk about energy suckers. And we talk about energy in the world of energy, the chakra energies, right? So we'll tap into that a little bit, kind of how all three energies are aligned through the chakra energies. But I think the energy suckers are not necessarily other people. They can be other people. There are things that happen to us, and how we react to them determines your energy. It isn't just what's happening outside of you. It's what's happening outside of you could be very bad, and sometimes it takes a while to recover your energy from that. My wife, Jill, went to a funeral the other day, on Friday, and a dear friend of ours passed away with cancer. He was fighting it for the last year and a half, and then he lost the battle, and so that is something bad that is happening in the nervous system of the people that were close to him. So that's going to take a while for that loss, that grief, to be able to recover from. People go through divorces. I've got a friend going through a divorce right now, and my buddy Andy, going through this divorce, he's having a hard time. He's kind of cocooning. He's conserving his energy. He's not the jovial self that he once was. He's not playing golf to the level that he wants to. He's not doing things that he takes care of himself. So things that happen to us that can be very bad, the grief, the loss, a job loss is another one, right? Talking to a guy yesterday, a friend of a friend, and he's been struggling for the last year and a half. He's in a particular niche of technology that's been greatly impacted by AI, and he's having a hard time shifting over to a new set of tools and technologies, and he's struggling to find a job. So there's all those sort of grief, the energy suckers. Those are the biggest ones that I can think of. But then again, you may have a hip problem, and that hip is bothering you so much that you're like, oh my God, I don't have energy to do anything. I can't go outside. That's more of a physical pain. But I think the emotional and the spiritual pains are almost worse. Would you agree, Bob? Would you say that an emotional loss and the energy that takes out of you is probably more of an energy suck than, would you say, a physical pain or a physical loss?
I think I used to think that before my hip went bad. I mean, I've been dealing with a sore hip now for a couple of years, and I'm on my weight loss journey now, so I can end up getting a new hip. And I really used to think, Vipin, that the emotional issues were more of a drain. But honest to goodness, with the hip right now, it feels pretty good the last couple of days. But prior to getting my cortisone shot, it was just debilitating. I didn't feel like doing anything. It made me depressed. I didn't want to go outside. I didn't want to go do any work. I would try to park as close to the front door as I could to go to different places. So I think that they both are valid, that they both suck energy, but I honestly don't know which one is worse, to be honest with you. Because I mean, I've gone through divorce, I've gone through a job loss, and then now I've got this, this constant pain. So I believe that they all are time sucks, or not time sucks, but energy sucks, but in a different way, I guess.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. I think that three-legged stool that we talked about, right? Physical, emotional, and the spiritual. And I think that they're all important. Maybe they're equally important. And so I was probably wrong. When you don't have the physical, you strive and try to fix that. Obviously, when you're sick and you got cancer and all of that stuff, you're doing everything in your power to take that sucking energy out and rebuild it. And so it's really important to focus on that energy at that time. And then the emotional energy is also important, to manage your emotions while you're going through that pain. I tend to get cranky when I'm in physical pain. When I get sick earlier in the year, when I hurt my back, and when I had sinus infections and getting those headaches, that was hurting me not only physically, but it was also affecting my emotional health. So I think they interact and interchange each other. The spiritual energy, I think, is when we feel fear when we feel doubt, when we lose hope, when we don't think we're going to get what we want. Those are the big ones that I think that suck the energy out of us. Fear, doubt, uncertainty, fear of failure, fear of the future, things like that. When we don't have our basic needs met, are we ever going to get that again? May that be through a job or a relationship or a physical. Are we ever going to get better from our hip problem? And so these energy suckers are real. I think that what we can do is maybe balance from one to the other. So maybe we can help work through the physical pain by taking care of ourselves emotionally and being loving and kind to ourselves. We've talked about Dr. Joe Dispenza quite a bit in the past, probably not for the last month and a half or so. He's kind of this, I think he's a chiropractic doctor who's gone and done a ton of research on energies and health. And he talks about meditation, and he talks about heart coherence and the brain coherence and connecting the two together to get our bodies aligned. Once we get those two together, he actually got into a bicycle accident where he was paralyzed, and he somehow mustered up enough energy to heal himself. And from being paralyzed through months later to be a fully functional athlete again, he's been able to write a lot about energies and how to maximize those energies and getting towards the life of what you want. So he's a big proponent of the connection of the heart and the mind and the body and the soul. I think those things really help. When we talk about energy and our economy, not having enough money to eat or do the things that we want to do, or not having enough money or shelter or clothing and things like that, they can be really painful. And so one of the things that we talk about in the chakra system that we've talked about in the past is the physical chakras are your security chakra, your root chakra, base of your spine. That basically affects your stability. This is kind of where your physical pain. It's not surprising that it's at the base of the spine, which controls everything. You lose a spine, a disc or something like that, you're going to be hurting a lot. So physical energy is managed through that. The second one is your sacral chakra, which is the sexual chakra. That gets motivated through creativity and desire and manifesting through emotions and really looking at creation as a whole and desire and wanting. And then the third one is your physical power. If you get stressed out, your stomach starts to hurt and your stomach gets in the way. So, and then the heart controls the bottom three chakras as well as helps with the other three at the top, which is your throat chakra, which is your mind's eye, the sixth chakra, and then an abundance, the seventh chakra, which deals with the spiritual energy. And so I think it's a balance of all three. I think if you want your economy to be in balance and aligned to what you want, it's not just about the money. You got to work on your inner self, and that means you got to work on your physical self. Lots of great tools out there, lots of great ways to do that. The one that we tend to preach here is the mantras. They can actually help you align your central nervous system. Breathing exercises. We've talked about Raja Pranayama, which is deep breathing. You and I have practiced that in these sessions. And then helping through that, staying a calm, centered. Calm is really the way we believe that you can manage your energy in a physical world. And then in a centered mind is kind of your emotions. If you're centered, you're less likely to react to something in a negative way that might hurt you down the road. Controls your fifth chakra, how you react, how you communicate, how you connect with people. And then love is kind of the ultimate universal thing. A lot of religions talk about love, and a lot of spirituality talks about love. And that's how you do it. And then basically, from my standpoint, if you want to be able to generate external wealth, you've got to be aligned with all three of those, and then focus on what kind of value can you provide to other people through your passions. So what is it, the skill that you love to do? Do you make a piece of wood and turn it into a piece of furniture? Do you take your time and spread joy at a restaurant by serving people and being kind and give your value of conversation, Bob, which is kind of what you tend to do, right? You tend to give the value of conversation to people. So that's the value that you provide. And that's why the restaurants hire you to be able to go help them serve people in a kind, loving, fun, connected way so that you can get what you want out of that. And they can give you what you want, which is monetary value. And so that's kind of how the circle of the economy works. Everything kind of ties back to the inner wealth map that we talk about, the chakra system. You got to take care of yourself. You got to accept where you're at. You got to accept yourself and be grounded. You got to be calm in that way. You got to be centered. You got to control your power, which is your reactions, your beliefs, your thoughts. And then from that standpoint, to be able to go to a higher level by saying, I love myself. I love other people. I can only give what I have. So if you don't really truly love yourself, you can't really give true love. You may be able to give physical and or emotional support, but you may not be able to give the true love that you have in your heart if you're not aligned with your true values. So,
So have you loved yourself your entire life, or is that something that just is a more recent thing for you?
That's a great question. I have loved myself throughout my life. I have had moments of
Self-doubt?
lack of self-love, but I think as a person, it's just kind of weird, but I think this is where it's that embedded childhood thing. Somehow, somewhere, maybe it was my grandma, maybe it was my mother, somebody said to me that you're a very special person. And maybe it was some sort of an innate thing that said, you're a very special person. You're going to do some amazing things in life. Now, amazing doesn't mean that you're going to go out and become a saint like Mother Teresa. She did the smallest thing in the smallest part of India and the poorest people that nobody wanted to touch. She basically bathed the lepers, right? And she helped the poorest of the poor, and she gained sainthood by becoming a saint, by helping so many people. But really, she saw the face of Jesus in those people. That's why she was doing it. So by doing the smallest thing in the smallest part of a huge city that nobody wanted to go, the untouchables, she got notoriety from it. So being special doesn't mean that you're going to go out there and you're going to make, $50 million and be like, Elon Musk and go create the car company of the future. That's a very far and few between thing of being special. I'm just talking about being special to make the world a better place. Share your love, your enthusiasm. I've had a number of times, when my father died, I had a woman sit in the front row, an old Indian auntie of mine, and she basically said, wow, the way you spoke about it, the way you spoke about your father's, I read something out of the Hindu text and I read something out of the Christian text, and it really brought together for her what it meant to be spiritually present. So I felt special at that moment. I felt like I was very loving in that moment. I've had moments where other people have lit up my flame of enthusiasm and have said, hey, you're, and I ended up getting the URL enthusiasm.com, and enthusiasm was a big part of it. Enthusiasm, the word means enthos. It comes from the Latin word enthos, or the Greek word enthos, which means God within. So if we all believe in God within us, we do feel self-love. But I've definitely had bouts of it. Whenever I've had issues with job losses, I didn't value and love myself, didn't think I was good enough. Whenever I had relationship losses, I didn't value or didn't think I was good enough. But I think what you and I talked about internally, I think it was last week, self-worth equals external worth. And I think it makes a big difference. I think self-love is something that you don't get from external validation. All those things that I was talking about were all self-esteem things. But self-love really just comes from loving and accepting yourself as who you are and appreciating yourself. And so, yeah, I've had it at moments. I've lost it at moments. But it's something that I've reinforced to myself lately more than ever. And I suspect that I will continue to do that more than ever. I don't really care about external validation anymore, either in a personal relationship or in a professional relationship. It's nice to get validation, but I care more about what I feel, what can I give, what can I fill myself up with. And to be honest with you, my love for myself is not from myself. It comes from God. It comes from a higher source. I try to fill myself by opening up the seventh chakra, and I basically say, fill me with abundance and love and gratitude. And whenever I practice gratitude, I feel I'm full with love and I'm grateful for what I have. And so, yeah.
Some of the things that we can do personally to build up this health savings account, or this energy savings account: be well rested, sleep well, take time for yourself, because I think a lot of us don't take time for ourselves. We don't take those extra few moments. One of the things that I did a lot when I was married, when my kids were little, I worked early morning. So, I mean, I had to be to work by 5 o'clock in the morning. And so I got off work a lot of times between noon and 1. Well, the kids went to school till 3. And so I had a couple of hours every day to recharge myself. And I'll tell you what, that helped me a lot with energy and building up the energy of myself. Since we've been talking, I've been exercising more. I've been having the attitude of gratitude is that's one of the sayings that you and I have talked about, the calm, centered and loving thing. We talked about meditation, which is something that I never did prior to us having conversation. And where I live, I mean, honest to goodness, Vipin, I live in the middle of nowhere. I look across I look out the window here and I can see the Mississippi River, and I go down, I go in my backyard and there's woods right there, and there's a creek that leads into the Mississippi River. So time in nature also helps me to rebuild and to have that positive, and that I post my hammock thoughts too. So I mean, all of those things kind of combine together to give me my peace that I need, that little bit of extra oomph and the way that we need, or the way that I need personally to rebuild and to rejuvenate myself.
Yeah. So I think what you're talking about isn't just about physical. It started out as physical. Oh, I need rest. I get my rest through my naps or my sleep at night. That's physical energy rejuvenation, which is really important. And you started talking about nature. You started getting in touch with nature. Fresh oxygen. You're in the woods. You're very lucky. I live in the middle of a city where there's not a lot of trees. I'm surrounded by trees in my backyard and my front yard. I happen to live in one of the most tree-laden streets in the city, so I'm pretty blessed that way. But I still live in a city. I live very much close to downtown. I'm like a mile from downtown. And so nature is hard to come by. There's lots of parks that I go to and visit. Last weekend, I went hiking in the woods and camping in the woods, and that was really refreshing and really touched my soul, and it really got me thinking and writing. And I finished the last 2 weeks, I finished just 2 chapters of my book. And I think that's where the thing about true self-love started to come in. And so nature helps us get in touch with the divine or the higher source. And I think that's a really cool thing. And so I think that's one way. And I think that what you talked about, the mantra, I'm calm, centered, and loving. The calm is the physical rest, the energy piece of it. The centered is the mind, calming your emotions. And the loving is your soul, your spirit. But let's talking about summarizing, your energy is your economy. The more you try to increase your energy, the more energetic you are in your all 3 areas. You tend to be at a higher level of vibrations. Your frequencies, your megahertz that your body is pushing out there through your heart, you will connect and attract people of similar nature. If you close your heart, if you don't open it up to other people, if you don't open up your body, your mind, your soul to other people, you're not going to get what you want. If you ultimately want to manifest great external wealth, you got to match the energy of the people who are at that level. There's no accident that these people work very hard. They work in a centered way. For most of them, they're driven by energy and goals at a physical level. Rarely will you find people who are not balanced in all 3 that are successful. That's the majority of the rule in my mind. When I talk to people who are executives in my company, and I see people throughout the years, they were really good at emotional management. Rarely did they lose their temper. They may here and there, but very focused, very driven. They would take the right actions. They would be calm and centered. I don't know about the loving part, because I haven't gotten in touch with them on that part. But at some deep down level, I think they were driven by a higher purpose to share their intelligence, their experience with people, and add value to themselves and add value to society. So really, how you add value to society is by taking your energy, which is your aligned passion, your aligned wants, skills, and then sharing that with other people. And then they will in return give you monetary value of the things that you provide, what we call use value. Like you're sharing your connections, I'm sharing my thoughts and ideas, I'm sharing my insights and education, and hopefully taking my energy through the podcast and sharing it with the world. The love that I have for humanity, the love that I have for people, and to be able to take that, turn that around. And the book is coming out there. It's already happening. So it's manifesting itself. I do the same thing at my job. I provide positive energy. I provide positive outcomes. I help the company grow to the level that it needs to grow and sustain itself. So yeah, so we're always taking our energy, and it is our economy. And the way to do that is to increase your energy, not to protect it. You've got to sometimes protect it a little bit, but more or less, the more you give, the more you start to embed it through love and positive self, through meditation, through mantras. Like I say, calm, centered, and loving. And that's when you fill yourself up with energy, you can give it away.
And that wraps up this episode of Manifest 360. If today's conversation sparks something in you, don't just think about it, apply it. Alignment isn't a vibe, it's a practice. Belief, emotion, strategy, and action, all moving in the same direction, that's where momentum lives. Be sure to follow, share with someone building something meaningful, and join us next week as we continue helping you manifest wealth and purpose. Manifest 360 is a podcastforhire.com production.